Machination is directed by Sarah Jane Pertelli and Ivan Malikin, and even though it doesn't say it specifically, it is deeply inspired by COVID-19 and the effects that that has on mental illnesses. It ultimately follows a young woman in the middle of a pandemic that is struggling to keep her wits about her as she stays away from people, her job, her rent, even her own family, and goes around cleaning everything in her house 24/7 and still feels unclean, going so far as to see physical manifestations of bugs and other symbols of dirtiness, making her go down a rabbit hole of isolation, fear, and sickness. This film does a great job symbolizing what goes through some people's minds when it comes down to the pandemic. It might take things a little bit over the top, but all good films do when it comes down to metaphors, and this film is filled to the brim with those. Enough for me to say, please, watch the movie, because even if it's by a slight fraction, it explains a lot of what goes on in my head, and I'm sure a lot of others as well. As somebody who has cleaned his groceries for the last 2+ years, and as somebody that only leaves the house to do necessary things such as grocery shop, work, and go to the doctor, I can say that this film hit close to home. I don't do a lot of other stuff. I don't hang out with friends. I don't go to the movies. I don't go out to eat. Nothing. At least for the last 2 years. And you know what? I have cabin fever over it, but I don't really see an alternative as of yet. You know what I mean? We live in a society of people that all view COVID-19 differently, as they're allowed to do, and sometimes it's really hard to explain to people how difficult it really is to live in the pandemic, while everybody else seems to act like it doesn't exist, and it should be instead be viewed as a, if I get it situation, but other than that, don't bring it up now. This film not only showcases those with mental illnesses, but it also kind of shows a little bit of division as well, because every other character in the film acts like, yeah, there is a pandemic, but, you know, whatever. And they all minimize this woman's feelings towards it, and they think she's crazy. Again, I can relate. Now, the film does operate a little bit over the top, like I mentioned, and she hallucinates things like mealworms and other disgusting stuff. I don't hallucinate, but I get where they're coming from. To me, I just saw all of these hallucinations in the film as a direct visual metaphor and symbol of how unclean this woman sees the world and herself, and it does a great job showing the audience how the situation seems to be getting worse and worse for her. People that I know specifically say they don't see bugs or anything, but they feel like they're there. Microscopic, bacteria, etc. You know, whatever the case is, something unclean, something that needs to be dealt with right now before it multiplies and gets too difficult to deal with in the future. This film was very, very smart in terms of the mentality that some people go through. Now, it's not a perfect movie, I'll admit. There's not much of a narrative. It's much more of a psychological study, I'd say, than downright movie with an actual plot. So this woman isn't really trying to do anything from beginning to end. She's just trying to stay clean. So in that respect, a lot of what happens in the film can feel absolutely repetitive. And it's almost like, well, if she's just going to do this over and over and over again, I can look away. I can go to the bathroom, I can run and get some snacks, and at the end of the day, I'm not going to really miss anything important. You might be right there too. Even though I think the tone and the metaphors of the film get bigger and bigger and more impending throughout the film, plot-wise, not much changes, and I think that that's a significant problem. It also causes a bit of an issue for the climax of the film, because if there is no real plot of what this woman's trying to do, then how exactly is it going to come to a satisfying conclusion? Again, I thought it was slightly anticlimactic, slightly predictable, because I kind of saw where it would be ending up, but I still enjoyed the ride all the same. And this woman who played the lead actress, Steffi Fake, she did a fantastic job shouldering basically all of the responsibility and emotions, and I believed her anxiety and her fears. So, bravo to you, Steffi. But with all that said, let's go ahead and break down my final score for a second. From a technical or unbiased perspective, I'll give that a score of 72%, because even though it is kind of inexpensive, you know, kind of a low budget thing, I thought a lot of the stuff going on behind the scenes was very smart. The editing did a decent job showing you on its own the kind of anxiety that this woman was feeling. I thought the use of bugs or mealworms, all that, was very smart in terms of practical effects for the visuals. I thought that the performances were strong. The only thing that I didn't really care that much about was the narrative structure, which again felt to me kind of weak, as it was a story that wasn't really going anywhere specifically, but still, it's a fairly decent score of 72%. Now, my bias score was significantly higher, though, at 86%, because I really enjoyed it. I was thoroughly engaged because, in a way, I thought that I was watching a little bit of a reflection. It was a bit over the top in comparison to my own life, but the idea on its own was very, very smart and expertly executed, at least in my opinion. So 86%. When we combine those two scores together, 72 and 86, we come to the final rating of 79%. 79 out of 100 possible stars. For me, that's a letter grade of B on my letter grading spreadsheet. Now, guys, have you seen this film? And if you have, I'd love to hear your thoughts about it in the comment section down below. And as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit that like, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell to be notified when I come up with my next review. Until then, peace out.